Imagine you wake up and make a small daily choice. You write a sentence, you lace up your running shoes, you read one page. It doesn't matter, it's even ridiculous. But you do it the next day and the next. Weeks turn into months, and the small choices become habit. Months turn into years, and routines shape you. That slow, steady transformation is the power of consistency. Consistency is not glamorous. It does not give fireworks or instant approval. Instead, it builds up quietly like water wearing down stone. It is humble, resolute, and deeply human. Others misconstrue consistency as perfection. They envision a rigid schedule, a stifling routine with no place for pleasure. In life, true consistency arises out of balance. It requires routine and kindness too. There are some days when you do the whole practice with care and interest. Some days you do the bare minimum possible version of the practice and call it good. The key is not to confuse kindness with resignation. The core of the problem is returning, not always winning. There's a little bit of old philosophy in there that feels modern. The old philosophers taught us to concern ourselves with what we can control. Consistency requests you to do exactly that. You don't necessarily get to dictate outcome recognition or the timing of success. What you do get to dictate is the next decision. When you anchor in the next decision, you stop betting on motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Habit is not. That reliability builds character. Practically speaking, consistency prefers clarity. Set the smallest behavior you can do that gets you closer to your target. Practice for 10 minutes is superior to be more creative because the first option avoids ambiguity for your future self. Layer the behavior onto a behavior you already perform. If you already brew coffee each morning, make that second become the trigger point for your writing or stretching. Habit stacking isn't a hack. It is designing your future. Consistency also thrives in environment. Make the first step simple. If you want to play guitar, keep the instrument out where it is in view. If you want to read, more have a book next to your bed. Small design changes eliminate resistance. The path of least resistance should take you towards your intention, not away from it. Balance has another function. Without rest, discipline becomes brittle. Pushing until breaking consistency becomes a liability. Create versions of practice for tough days. A 10-minute practice, a mini check-in, a reflective journal entry. These mini versions maintain identity and momentum when life gets in the way. There is also a playful side to disciplined repetition. Restraints actually produce creativity. When you set time tools or rules in motion, you hold yourself hostage to finding creative solutions. Artists, athletes, and designers find that rigid constraints produce unexpected breakthroughs. Consistency provides the context wherein play becomes productive. Finally, know that consistency builds up. The little investment you make daily grows like savings interest. They are silent starts and eventually unmistakable. 1 month of small triumphs is no portrait on a podium, but it's a new habit. 1 year of small triumphs is a changed ability. If you wish to change your life, the most reliable path is the accumulation of small, wise acts repeated with determination. Think of the people who inspire you who it seemed like they arrived overnight. Gaze deeper, and you often find deep return histories. A teacher who gets to class early, a parent who reads the same bedtime story until the child sleeps through the night, a coder who spends all-nighters refining a function. Their moments of recognition are thin slices from much longer habits. These habitual returns build quiet mastery and, perhaps more importantly, self-trust. Self-trust is earned in small measures. You keep appearing for yourself time and time again, and soon enough you no longer negotiate with your higher hopes. Feelings will complicate the journey. Boredom, doubt, and comparison are familiar travel mates. When you are discouraged by slow progress, change your attitude. See the work as an experiment, not a contest. Experiment with your assumptions. Are you measuring the right things, or are you trying to be approved of? The practice of asking better questions will keep you engaged without sidestepping the challenge. One last practical nudge: bookmark small milestones. Recognize that consistency is an incrementally long marathon. Take time to observe a week, a month, a pattern. These are not bribes that reward you further. These are moments of gratitude that turn rote repetition into a lived story. When you mark the small wins, you create a library of evidence that you are growing. That library makes it a heck of a lot easier to keep showing up when the days feel indistinguishable. Begin with kindness today. Set one little promise and fulfill it. Gradually, the smallest gestures become the foundation of your most critical work. Consistency changes the way you think about time. In a time that commodifies urgency, choosing a long view is an act of revolution. When you stick to the next right action, you are placing a bet on your future self. That bet earns interest. It generates patient stability and a still, quiet calm. Years down the line, you realize that your decisions are less about reaction and more about consciousness. The regular practice creates a center from which you can move with greater ease. Philosophical schools down the centuries offer guardrails to such work. Stoics instructed attention and acceptance of what we can't control. Modern science proves that the brain learns by repetition. Both Stoics and modern thought converge on a helpful rule. Choose actions you can repeat, then repetitively repeat them mindfully. Repetitively performing an action out of interest is different from mindlessly repeating it. Interest constitutes care. It turns the practice into exploration and keeps the practice current. One actual advantage of consistency is the manner in which it streamlines priorities. If you focus on something time, and again your mind filters out other distractions naturally, not everything is worth the same amount of energy. Consistency is now an act of intention. It sends a message about what is important. In a world full of constant pulls, having one consistent approach streamlines several decisions and guards your attention. A second benefit is resilience. Because behavioral habits, our identity-defining failures, are less powerful. If you define yourself as, "I am a person who writes every day," then to miss a day is no crisis. It's not the end of the world. You will be most likely to return to find out what went wrong and to do something about it. That resilience is the result of habit, and habit is strengthened by small repeated successes. Make room for play. Enjoyment of discipline evaporates. Gravity infused with curiosity fuels creativity. Encourage invention through the use of limits. Define tiny experiments in your practice. Shift the material, shift the time, or shift the tempo. These micro-experiments revitalize the energy and open a portal to happy surprise. Community is also involved. There is a social grammar to ritual. Shared practices become tradition, and traditions become sources of meaning. Find a partner or small cluster with which to share your micro-promises. Share reports of progress, not in order to compare, but in order to witness. Witnessing someone else return to their practice can be as inspiring as the act of practicing. Watch out for two pitfalls: using consistency as a replacement for change, and confusing movement and motion. The first pitfall is when routine becomes an excuse for doing nothing. You repeat a task repeatedly to feel productive but avoid making deeper decisions. The second pitfall is doing plenty of things without cohesion. Use reflection to keep action and purpose aligned. Every few weeks, reflect on whether your everyday practices are moving you toward greater objectives. Create a simple practice rhythm and a simple review rhythm. Practice can be short and every day. Review can be longer and weekly. In review, monitor progress, energy, and challenge. Make small changes. This practice reflection cycle keeps the work alive and wise. Lastly, kindness is not optional. Consistency is a relationship with yourself. Be kind to that relationship in the same way you would be to a friend. When you blow it one day, talk to yourself out of curiosity. When you get it done, celebrate with real pride. The more loving your inner dialogue, the better chance your practice endures the inevitable interruptions. If this concept resonates with you, experiment briefly. Choose one micro-action, do it every day for 2 weeks, and note how it affects your mood, focus, or confidence. Comment back with your findings. Pose questions, report the little surprises, and encourage others to experiment. Your experience is more important than any news headline. The simplest actions live slowly produce the most reliable consequences. Following is a step-by-step plan in action that you can amend with examples and tips to troubleshoot. Read at your own pace and implement 1 or 2 items this week. The idea is not to transform your life, but to establish a good foundation. Choose one micro-promise. Find the smallest important thing that you can accomplish each day. Examples: write 200 words, walk for 10 minutes, practice scales for 15 minutes, read 10 pages. The key is that this task must be so tiny that you cannot negotiate it away. Write out the promise and post it in a place where you will see it each day. Anchor the behavior to a cue. Choose an habitual trigger that is already present in your day. 5 minutes after pouring your morning coffee, right? After the commute, do a speedy practice session. Anchoring uses existing habits and minimizes the requirement of willpower. Make your surroundings simple. Cut out the resistance that blocks getting started. Place your instrument on a stand, leave your running shoes at the door, put a notebook on your kitchen table. Small design decisions alter the path of least resistance in your life. Create a tiny backup plan for bad days. Think ahead of time about what you will do in case of low energy or time. Examples: write a 5-minute version. Write 1 sentence or repeat 1 concept. These gentle alternatives ensure continuity and keep your identity intact with the practice. Track the habit visually. Utilize a plain calendar, a checklist, or a streak displaying app. Having the chain of days visible builds momentum. The visual evidence of continuity will motivate you more than abstract intentions. Employ identity language. Anchor the habit in your identity. Use "I am a writer who writes daily" rather than "I will write more." Identity language dismantles inner resistance and decision-making becomes easier. Bake in little accountability. Tell a friend your micro-promise, join a small group, or submit brief reports to a person who will lovingly hold you accountable. Accountability is not shame. It is having a practice buddy. Institute weekly reflection. Weekly, take 10 to 20 minutes to reflect back over what went well, what leached out of you, and what could be improved. Write 1 note on progress and 1 adjustment to make next week. Reflection keeps repetition from getting on autopilot and keeps your practice aligned with your goals. Employ constraints as prompts. Reduce time, tools, or scope to spur invention. You have 15 minutes to draw, set the limit, and play. Constraints translate pressure into play and make routine practice more accessible. Schedule variety within a coherent structure. Vary themes or areas of focus so that practice is engaging. For instance, spend some days on technique, others on experimentation, and others on rehearsal. It keeps curiosity piqued without losing rhythm. Monitor both metrics and feeling. Track quantitative markers when helpful, but also note qualitative shifts. Energy, mood, focus, confidence. Combining numbers with reflection gives a fuller picture of progress and meaning. Redo setbacks as information, not identities. When you fall a day, ask what the disruption learns. Was the action too big? Did the environment resist? Did priorities shift? Use setbacks to strengthen the plan, not to shame yourself. Revel in micro wins. Make little rituals of acknowledgement. A pause to breathe, a journal entry, or a treat. These brief instants of appreciation make the habit emotionally viable and build the routine. Make room for play and rest. Purposefully plan breaks and slack time. Rest is not the enemy of persistence. Rest permits endurance. Make seasons of focus followed by seasons of open inquiry, so your curiosity is kept sharp and burnout is averted. Build feedback loops. Get fast feedback often. Watch a video, test an idea, or share work with someone you trust. Short loops accelerate learning and enable you to avoid deeply embedded errors. Scale intentionally slowly. Because the micro-promise is regular, increase the practice level incrementally. Increase by 5 minutes, add one more paragraph or slightly harder task. Incremental scaling creates momentum without risking overload. Use community rituals to reinforce commitment. Engage in regular group practice or partner with someone who has complementary goals. Public rituals convert solitary repetition into shared meaning and enable easier return when motivation wanes. Have a consistency toolkit nearby. Have a playlist or trigger a quick breathing exercise, a mini notebook for writing down ideas, and a visual tracking tool. On busy days, a toolkit eliminates decision fatigue and helps you get back on track in no time. Shift language and identity. Practice "I choose" rather than "I should," and recall what matters. Language generates action. Be specific about the story you are creating about yourself. Begin today and invite a friend. Publicly promise the micro version to one individual. Have them call you in a week. Then pledge to the bare minimum for 7 days straight. Observe how consistently going back alters the dialogue you have with yourself. Troubleshooting the usual issues. If boredom comes knocking, adjust the practice or throw in a curiosity prompt. If things get chaotic, fall back on the backup mini version. If comparison is creeping in, look back at your own metric for success. If doubt freezes you, reduce the stakes and practice making quick decisions about little things. Consistency is usually as much about adaptation as it is about obstinacy. 2 last thoughts. Be easy on yourself. The way you treat your practice should be strong and compassionate. And don't forget that habit is a gift to your future self. The little bits you do today create the ability you will want tomorrow. Disperse your micro-promise here and give it to one person. Small public commitments turn private intentions into communal promises, and more importantly, into habits that spread outward.